Hello, guys. We are live, and I need to be honest. This is for me, it's for my own pleasure. This is going to be a conversation that has to do with people, personality, bias, behavior economics. Everything that we talk is concentrated in this live. Let me put mute. Here we go. Now I'll put mute. I know that we go in live and the sound is working. Let me tell you, you know that sometimes you need to pull your friend's car to bring some people to the show. And I've been saying this all week. I've been pronouncing your last name, Jeff, like horrible because I always call you Jeff. So I'm going to let you pronounce your last name by yourself. For me, is Jeff. He's the top expert on the world in cult. He have a new book that he's going to be talking about. He's going to give his intro, but we're going to concentrate in the why and how, because people think that cult is only to belong the Nazis or the cults that you have been reading on the books or as you has been seen on the media. We have been saying this during this week. If you want to go to the inferno to rescue someone, you need to have permission from the devil, or you need to talk to the devil to know how to navigate. In this case, we have a person for more than 25 years has been getting on the head of people and bring them in. And one of the things that surprised me every time that we talk with Jeff is neither of us, neither when I was in politics, neither when he was on the cult with the Nazi propaganda, understood that their terminology and psychological terms there has been given to things that are being done naturally. So this again is going to be a different conversation. So let me talk a little about our guests. Before that, I'm going to let you know, surviving Thanksgiving. We promise we're going to be talking how to survive Thanksgiving and have difficult conversations on Monday. You have been asking for, so be ready. Monday, we're going to talk about that. And people has been asking me about the private class that we talk. Is calculating success. I'm going to be really fast on this because I'm going to talk at the end. Is all these topics, all these behaviors, and you can add what classes and behaviors you're going to be learning. It's a private group. It's not a Facebook. We have live, we have experts, we have webinars inside the group. They are not going to be published live. So if you want to know more, what you need to do is write to consulting@susanivitz.com and we will send you the link to go to check the classes. On Tuesday, do you know that there is being given video of civilians working on the street to smugglers and people? And inside the jail, guess what? Over 95%, all of them, they choose the same person they were to rob or attack based on the body language and the way you walk on the street. So we're going to talk about that on Tuesday. Now, he has been on Joe Rogan 2 weeks ago. You need to see that interview. We're going to put all the links below. He has been in the Red Table Talk. He has been in Sky News. He was on Adam Grant podcast. He's recording podcasts every day. He did a huge tour in Australia. And now we have it here to talk about what is going on in cults. You want to connect with us? This is the way to do it. And today I have the luxury, the pleasure to bring my partner in crime, Elva, too, because her and I, we love the topic, so we're going to go. Jeff, what a pleasure to have you here. And one thing before we go into what is your story, we're going to concentrate on the topic of cults and how we work. Jeff has been working with corporations to understand how to manage toxic personalities because the cult mentality has to do with toxicity. And he has been helping families to extract loved ones and family members and friends and do intervention to take people out of the cult. Because I think, Jeff, nobody talk about all this amazing thing that you've been doing now. Jeff, what a pleasure to have you here.
Hi, Susan. Thanks for having me on the program. It's good to see you and Elba.
So, Elva, welcome, my partner in crime. So, Jeff, why don't you give us a scope that what is your story? You have an amazing book that I want to advise to everybody get, and let's jump to the nitty gritty and meat on the bone.
You got it. So I'm Jeff Scoop. I was involved in neo-Nazism for 27 years total. For 25 of those years, I was the national director or the national leader of the National Socialist Movement, which a lot of people would know as America's Nazi Party. I joined that organization. It was an old historical organization that had been around since the original continuation of George Lincoln Rockwell's original American Nazi Party from the 1950s or 59. And the National Socialist Movement was a continuation of that. When I first joined, it was a fairly small organization, and I by the time I left in 2019, it was the largest organization of its kind in the country, largest Nazi party in the country. So that's my regrettable past. So I want to talk about a little bit about that, but leave that there because the work that I do now is since 2019, I've been working in counter extremism. I pull people out of cults, out of gangs, out of we work against all kinds of extremism. And today, we're going to talk about the mindset, how that works, because a lot of times I think when I'm on different programs, we get caught up in my story because people are fascinated by that, and they get that's a long one. So if you're interested in the story, pick up the book American Nazi from Hate to Humanity. Today, I'm working with international human rights organizations like the Simon Wiesenthal Center. I've consulted with different governments around the world, as Susan mentioned. As you mentioned, I just gotten back from Australia. I've been on Joe Rogan and countless other things. So, but let's dive into it.
Yes. So let's understand what is bias first and what is the concept by the science of occult. Bias is a shortcut that the brain take not to get overloaded. And let's go talk about the two systems the brain work. We have system one on the brain that is Homer Simpson. We take shortcuts all the time to do things because are easy, and we call it like the dumber part of the brain that sometimes we let to do things that we shouldn't do. Is 95% of our decision. 5% is Albert Einstein. That is the other system that we use. But one of the things that the cults are really good, and let's understand the cult can be organized religion, and my fascination with this coming from my first master and manipulation, obedience, and false implanted memories is because I couldn't understand how people can fall on a cult. And the first thing that I understood is that in group and out group, they lure you in because they take you already from a group that you belong. And when you're in, it's like it's impossible to leave. Jeff, what is the concept from a cult, former cult leader, from what the science says? They call it in group, out group. How you call it and how it work?
In these, I mean, you explained it very well, but in these groups, the way they see it is so like when someone gets involved in a cult or one of these organizations, and we're using the term cult is sort of a broad spectrum here because it can encapsulate a lot of people when they think of cults, they just think of like Heaven's Gate or some of these other, some of these really strange out there groups, but a cult can be many, many different things. I can tell you when I was involved in the National Socialist Movement, I didn't see it as a cult, but people from the outside always noticed that. So different girls that I was dating, every one of them was saying, "You're a cult leader. This is a cult." And I'm in this denial process when I'm involved in it. I'm saying, "No, it's not. I think I'm making bad choices." So they don't see that. The people that are involved in it certainly don't see it as a cult. If you would have told anybody that's involved in it, it's a cult, they would say, "No, you don't know what you're talking about." But let's break it down. So when you're involved in something like that, everybody else on the outside is in the out group. They don't get it. So it's only the people that are inside that understand it. And that sort of mentality is pounded into the brains of the people that are in there. It's like the outside world doesn't understand us. They don't get it. They don't understand. We have this inherent truth that they can't see. You are enlightened. You know better. So now it is your duty to be part of this and to bring other people involved in it because you know this inherent truth and you need to be part of it. And it instills this sense of purpose and mission inside the individual. So this is a very powerful psychological tool. When someone is of that mindset, they're part of this mission, you can get that person to do just about anything. And a good example of that is with religious extremism. You look at organizations like ISIS. You've got a young man that is now chopping off the heads of people, and you're saying, wow, this person must have been a psychopath or a sociopath. Possible, but that's a very small percentage. Even in these extreme groups, it's a very small percentage of the people that are doing that. These are people that are regular people that have been radicalized to that point where they believe they're doing something good, whether it's for God, whether it's for the cult leader, whether it's for the cause. These are all the same psychological drivers, and they all run on parallels, and that's how it operates.
One of the things that, again, I get fascinated with the topic, that the reason I get so obsessed, is this, the family. One of the things that I found out in many cults, they call the family, and they bring people who have a broken family. And I see Elba licking her lips like what?
Yes, I was thinking, because it's something that you give that belonging sense for people, so they can belong to something, so they can feel the identity with.
Very much so. And in fact, in the white supremacist movement, there was some of the groups, like the skinhead groups in particular, a lot of them would say they're skinhead families. And that's just one example. But even and these parallel through all different organizations and cults and things like that. But that sense of purpose and that sense of family and belonging, these were our brothers and sisters, this is our family. This is very common terminology in these things, and it does fulfill that inherent human desire to have that sense of belonging, that sense of purpose, as I mentioned earlier, but also that sense of belonging, and that's a very powerful thing. And when you go into these type of organizations, quite often your real family, your actual family, will disown you, or you will disown your family. And this is something that's very inherent in cult groups, and we hear that all the time. But it really divides the ideologies, and the cult itself divides people from their family. Whether it's I would have told you at the time I was involved in it, it wasn't intentional, but when you look back and you start breaking down these psychological drivers, and you look at how it was and how it ripped apart families so often, then you are stuck in that organization now, and you don't have that fallback, or you don't have that support group, because you've ostracized yourself, or you've been ostracized. One or the other. They kind of go hand in hand when you really get down to it, because now you're in this group. This is your family, this is your mission, this is your purpose, and you don't have the support network, because they've either given up on you, or you've given up on them, or a combination of both, because now you're in this very isolating world. So imagine what that does to the human psyche and the mindset of the individual that's in it. So even if they start questioning things, they start wondering, like, it's easier to stay where I'm at, because this is my family, this is my support network. There was people involved in these groups, and this is all from lived experience. People were taking their family vacations, their time off of work, to come to movement events, rather than going to, say, Hawaii, or going doing something else. They were saving up to go to these events. So I mean, that's very cult like. Or you could say, from the movement purpose or the cult leader purpose, it's like that's a dedicated individual. But from a personal standpoint, it's rough, right?
One of the things that worry me about people talking about cults that never belong to a cult, only hear it from outside, it's an expert saying brainwash doesn't exist. And this person wrote a book saying brainwashing doesn't exist. And when I read that on that chapter on the book, I almost throw up. Because when you take away what are the behaviors used, and you deny brainwashing, let's go at the end of the cult. False confessions are done for a type of brainwashing. False implanted memories is a way to brainwashing. How the cults organize religion, even the religion of diet and surgical plastic surgery on the face, Botox, are religion, or meditation or visualization. Well, if the things don't happen, it's because you're failing. So they brainwash you to keep up and up and up, and has to do with the doomsday effect. Crazy is, and again, I'm going to go the nerd, you're going to simplify for people to understand. The dooms effect is, they say, for example, December 1st, the world is going to end. Sell everything that you have and give it to us, and we're going to save the world. December 1st, December 2nd, nothing happened. What they do is, well, our pride and our energy save it. And people, instead to leave the group, guess what? They double down. They bring more people and more money. So you're going to tell me that is not brainwashing, people killing their own kids and bringing to the cult? Jeff, give me the human understanding that brainwashing exists.
Oh, it absolutely exists. I can tell you. I got an example back from the 1990s. I was out at I was actually, at the time, I was staying out at Aryan Nations in northern Idaho at the compound there at the Aryan Nations church, and there was militia groups from Montana and Idaho that were busy recruiting. And this is a specific example that goes to what you were just speaking about. And these militia groups, and I thought, well, these are kind of interesting, so I went to check it out. But they kept saying, like, okay, on September 5th, the Chinese are going to invade across the Mexican border, and this is going to happen. This is happening, and they would actually leave dates for this stuff, and then those dates would come and go. And I would always think, like, wow, this isn't going to work for recruiting. These guys are going to, they were really growing fast at the time. I remember it was in Sandpoint, Idaho, and I think it was a school or something, but like every seat in that auditorium was filled. And I'm sitting, and I was pretty young at the time, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, this is what they're doing, that's good, that's working, but giving these dates, that's going to mess them up. And it did. I mean, eventually it did, because people started going, okay, well, they keep saying this stuff, but as you said, they would make new excuses. They would try to cover it up and say, well, it didn't happen on the 5th because there was some military delay between, they would make up these big long explanations for why it didn't happen, and then it would be postponed, like, it's actually going to happen in December, not September. We had the dates,
Conspiracy theory. The conspiracy
Yes.
theory. So the government, so the British killed Lady D, the this and this. Conspiracy theory to me is one of the worst cult, because people don't understand that when you get fed on the media is to brainwash you to get you what they want. When I says, and not offense, the devil knows for being old and being the devil, but when you have a 19 years old telling me you need to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, by 6 o'clock, I did my 5 miles, what you did with your life? Being an adult, you living on the basement of your parents. So what I'm saying is, that is brainwashing too, where they try to grab you to that call. So we need to understand those things are called too. They brainwashing you. Brainwashing is happening in everything. When you go into a military school, they do it too.
Yes.
What about or the media? Sorry, go ahead, Elba.
No, don't worry. It's one of the things that I was thinking right now. And part of the brainwashing can be the normalization part of the things, because you start seeing as a normal, something normal, and every day for you is going to be like, no, this is the way that I need to behave myself in this thing, for example.
It's conditioning for sure. And I was going to say too, like with the media, that's another tool for brainwashing. Ever try to switch on like right-leaning news versus left-leaning news? You get two completely different stories, and you have to go, whoa, okay, I just
what is the real story?
Yeah, what is the real story? You have to like go search it out and research it. It's like, that's not news, it's opinion. So you have to like spend all this extra time on your own actually breaking down that stuff to try to figure it out, if you even care that much to do so. A lot of people just it's their chosen confirmation bias and go, oh, I just agree with this, because they're not looking at both sides, they're just looking at one. So if we want to be conscious and strengthen our minds and our mindset to be resistant to this cult type mentality, we have to do that sort of internal investigation and look into the facts, not just believe everything that's spoon-fed to us.
Actually, that's coming perfect with the first bias. Halo effect. We call it the Karen effect. We talk on Wednesday. Halo effect basically is when you see someone and you admire someone, you automatically give that person all the conditionings that is going to make them you like them most. For example, I don't know, a singer, let's put, I don't know, Madonna. And now you think the Madonna thing like you, like the same food that you like. You give that person all the benefits of the doubt because you worship that person. And the worst part, the youngest generation, they don't have a strong figure and they don't have a strong character built. It's easy to follow the the false idols. So the halo effect is one of the first things that I think that the cult use to recruit people. Now tell us on the human way how that works.
Oh, it's easy, but it's also psychologically, I guess, complex because people don't realize that it's happening to them. So just as you explained, they're going into this mindset, like, it could even be their favorite politician, it could be a musician, it could be a cult leader, group leader or something like that. That you are automatically above the of the fray, you are without fallacy, you are, you can't question. You can't question it. In fact, in a lot of these groups, and I can say in the group that I was running, if somebody had a problem with it, like if somebody, I'll give one example just to make it simple. There was in the group I was in, we had females in leadership positions, and in some aspects of the extreme far right, that is taboo. That is not acceptable. You might have women leading women, but you didn't have women in charge of men typically. But in the organization I was in, I did do that because it to me, it didn't matter. Whoever was the best leader in those positions. So if someone then there was guys that would come in and they'd say, even at one point we were merging other organizations, smaller organizations were joining us and merging in. And there was a leader from a rather large organization that we had taken in. And he goes, my regional leader is a woman. Like, that's not acceptable. Like, I can't do that. And I said, there's the door. You can't question the leadership in these type of groups because the leader is always correct. So that was the leader isn't always correct. I'm saying in the mindset of the group member and of the group politic, the leader is always right and cannot be questioned in a lot of cases. And if you do question, then that's where the group think comes in, and that person that does the questioning or pushing is ostracized and pushed out. And that's pretty common in those type of groups.
Elba, I see you licking your lips. I know you too much.
Yeah, because this is part of I get it, the halo effect too, but I think the authority bias, because even though they are the leaders, you cannot question them. It's, for example, when you have a doctor and you see the thing that they use, how do you call it, Susan?
The gown, the white gown
thing that they use. Even though you are not going to question and you are not going to ask them the credentials to be a doctor, but you see it and it's like, okay, I cannot argue anything here. So I think it's something that can be together.
Well, that's give me the answer to the next bias. Yeah, Jeff, this is going to be a conversation. I don't know when we're going to finish. So if you haven't lunch, like, extend the lunch, cancel the rest of the day, because this is not, I don't know when we're going to finish. Yeah.
I was just gonna bounce off of what Elba was saying. There is that authority is definitely a big part of it as well, and having that sense of authority in that. It was something I learned very quickly as far as how you handle yourself in that scenario. And I can tell you just from a personal aspect, and this is something I haven't really talked about a lot, but in the home, like I'm with whatever woman I'm with at the time, she would always say, and this is all of them, they would always say, you're really different at home. Like, you're just Jeff, but when you go to these events, that's a different person. That's like you flip a light switch. And several of them explain it exactly like that. It's like, I want to go to the event because I don't see that person at home. I want to see that light switch flipped, and it was like a different person, because when I was in that mindset, it was different. Like, I was at home, I'm nice, I'm easygoing, whatever, but in that position of authority in the movement, that was completely different. If somebody was disrespectful, if somebody was acting up, if somebody was out of line, the authority came into play, and there was that sort of thing. And I can tell you just some other quick antidotes, like drug use wasn't tolerated in the organization that I was in. In later years, it was like, if somebody was smoking pot or something, don't bring it to an event, but whatever, we don't care. But illegal drugs was a different story. And there was one event down south that I was at, and I'd gotten a report that because people will report on each other too, so that's probably another thing that's interesting in these cults is that people will
Communism and socialism use cult effect, and we're not going to go to politics. But I was in Cuba for a year studying how they brainwash, and what they do is to dominate, is make people talk about other people to get gratification and to the leader. So again, I think we're going to do definitely a part 2 talking about how is working in certain parts that we're not going to talk today. But that you need to rat the other person in order to gratify and bow to the boss, and the boss believing in you and give you social status because you belong to the in group of the boss.
Yeah, so the person that did the reporting, like, so hey, so and so in this room has drugs. So they report that, and then he said, okay, so they're loyal. They're telling us that these people over here have drugs. So in that case, I went to the room, I confronted the people that had the drugs, and we beat them senseless. That was the discipline that was meted out. Like, you guys know you're not supposed to bring drugs to events. You're setting a bad example, and now you're going to pay the price. And there was one individual in that room that wasn't a member. So he was not physically disciplined like the other one was, but was basically told, you will not be showing your face at any of our events in the future, or that will be your just reward, basically.
What people don't understand about cults is the rigid of the structure is part of the brainwashing of the cult mentality. Let you run doing whatever you want. No, rigid is the structure more people attract. That is another thing, no, Jeff?
Well, yeah, the power dynamic, and that was so like in the group I was in, you had uniforms, you had black battle dress BDUs. So when you're in a uniform, there's that sense of authority that we talked about a little bit ago too, is that having that authoritarian outlook, having that structure in the group that I was in, and not all cults are structured the same, but the one that I was in had ranks and structure and stuff like that. So you had positions like political leader positions, regional leaders, state leaders, local city leaders, and then you also had rank structure for the like the military. You had sergeants and lieutenants and different people like that. So that was all important for the discipline.
And actually, your group was the one who have the biggest number of former military members. You have the majority, so they went for you for how structured your organization was. In case your group was extremely organized, and that attract people who coming from organization that have a hard structure.
That was intentional as well. Yes, because back in the early 2000s, I think the military, people that had current or former military was something like 10 or 15%. By the time I left, it was, I'd say close to 50%, maybe somewhere 45%, maybe something like that. But that's a lot. That's a lot of military in an organization like that. So that was intentional. It was dual purpose as well, because those people with that training could serve other purposes, and they were just easier to incorporate into the organizations and the structure the way we had it structured. So.
As an anecdote, I met Jeff when he was presenting and talking about his experience, and I remember it says, I'm the last one doing a question. And I remember Allison says, nope. I know one guy says, okay, my Jewish family want to put a bullet in your head, but my profiler want to understand why. And you was grateful, and we went for a drink. And I remember after having a conversation says, thank God you're not a cult anymore, because probably going to give you a kidney right now. So as you see Jeff calm, pause, that a dude you with him in a bar and you have a conversation, that is how real leaders, real people to the cult is see a side effect that we see on the movies like Hitler propaganda. Yeah, that happened when you didn't have the media, but now the media, video games, films, there's a word to recruit. The recruiters, the people who are going to lure your family, lure you, are some people says indoor cycling, gyms, supplements, all this LMS marketing things are a way to lure you. They lure you with things they know that you lack. They listen to you. They're like the big brother, and they bring you in. So it's not that it's to Jeff. He's kind, but you spend a couple hours with him, and seriously, you have a power to make people do whatever they want. So it's true that aggression is not the best way to lure people. You get more with a spoon of honey than a punch in the face.
Oh yeah, 100%. You don't. I would always say, like, you want the army that's willing to fight with you, and that's what from like a leadership standpoint, you get out there and you don't. First of all, you don't ask anybody in the organization to do something you're not willing to do yourself. So like even when there was violent situations and stuff like that, I would. The membership would want me to go to the back, or be somewhere, protected. I would always go to the front because I wanted to inspire that courage in other individuals as well. So having that structure and understanding what the person needs or what they're looking for. In the group that I was in, there's a few things that we wanted. I think people will find this interesting too, like on the membership application. We wanted to know what branch of service they were in, or what branches, and their ranks. People were turning in their DD 214s, so we could actually check, because there's people that do like false valor, stolen valor type stuff, so we want to make sure, no, this isn't somebody telling us they were special forces or whatever. We want to see it. So we would do background checks on people. So
because you want to make it inaccessible. We want what we cannot have. We were talking and other aspect to people understand how that work. It's more easy for a married man to get laid than a single one. Why? Because if it's taken, I want it. What is difficult, I want it. So part of the process of when the people says exclusive, like, it's because they want you in, they want you to fight for it. When you fill all those forms that online, they make it difficult and longer, and like, oh my God, that must be something special at the end. And at the end, they want to sell you something. So it's part of the tactic of a cult.
And we had non-disclosure agreements. So people, if they left, or if another group was trying to recruit them, or if police came or law enforcement came, the individual, even if they didn't understand, because the form was, a big, long, full page full of, I don't even know how many words, a packed page full of information, what they were signing. And everybody, not in the early years, I didn't figure that out, but later on, I figured that out. It's like, okay, so-and-so said the feds stopped by their house and were asking questions, and they answered some of the questions. Oh no, that's not acceptable. Here, you better be signing this. And so by the end of my time in there, or the last, I don't know, 10 years or so, everybody that was in any sort of leadership position, even just a local group leader, was signing those. Unless you were just a foot soldier, you didn't have to. But there was a couple of the state units that were automatically having every single member sign them. And I was like, that's not necessary. We just need the leaders to do that. And they're like, no, we want to make sure everyone is, because you never know, somebody could come to a meeting and try to recruit them out for another group. I said, okay, that makes sense. That's fair. So I was accepting them, but I wasn't making that part mandatory. But the other thing on the application, I think what you might find interesting, was we wanted to know their religion. And the group that I was in was not religious, because I had noticed early on, one of the infighting things between the different groups was always over religion. So it's like, you can have your religion.
I'm sorry, the Nazis were fighting about religion, not the Nazi propaganda.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but it's ridiculous. I'm not laughing because it's fun. I'm laughing because that's how irrational we are. And when I says, why is specializing in rational humans? You don't understand what is the deepness of the irrationality that we have as humans. They fighting for religion when you're part of the Nazi propaganda.
Huge. So just like you said, so from the average person from the outside looking in at these groups, and I hear this all the time, but we don't really go into the psychological aspects of it very often because people just don't ask. But they want, they would assume everybody that's in Nazi groups, clans, skinheads, whatever, that all these groups love each other, get along great, because they all they believe in some different things, but they have those uniting factors. That was a struggle in itself to bring these groups together. And several times over the years, I put together coalitions that would pull these groups together so you could bring more numbers to events and have stronger forces, et cetera, et cetera. But there's egos that get involved in that. There's religious infighting. There's power, money, whatever it might be that people are going to argue over, influence. And these groups hate each other in that sense. So when they look at it from the
That
outside
too.
looking in, it's like, oh, you guys must all get along. No, they'll tear each other apart. There was people that would say, when we come to power, the Odinists, the pagans would say, we'll wipe out the Christians. And the Christians would say, no, when we come to power, we're going to wipe out the Odinists, but yet they're all in the same organization. Or the atheists, so on and so forth. All these groups kind of saying these things, so I would say, I don't want to hear that kind of talk. That's not acceptable. But the best way to keep the peace was to keep religion, in the case of the group I was in, is to kind of keep it to home and family. And that was actually encoded into the handbooks, to try to cease that infighting. And if I saw it come up, I would stomp it out and basically say, like, the one way to do that is like, that stuff will be sorted out after we come to power, so then okay, then people would stop fighting about it. But you would still hear sometimes those comments and that sort of thing, and you think, man, these groups are already so fractured as it is, but then they're going to go kill each other over that kind of stuff, or take each other out over that sort of thing. It's really crazy, but it keeps that cycle is constantly going, and it's constantly it will adhere people to the group that they're in, the in-group.
Elba, you were taking notes, and after that, we're going to go to the proportionality bias. You're mute, my love. You're mute. It's happening all the time. She have kids and dogs.
No. We don't know. So now that you were talking about having a lot of groups together and they don't have anything, and then you see like, oh, these people is not going to get together. How is the mission, is the view, how is the best way, or was the best way to put everyone together? Because they were so different.
That is an excellent question, because it has to do what he does with companies. When you have a bad apple, that is one of the specialty most people don't know. Jeff is called to get the soldiers and the dog on the road, and he does it really well. Tell us. I want to hear that one.
Yeah, I mean, that was it was difficult. Like at first, the first time I tried bringing groups together was back in the 90s. And I was like, wow, this is like one of the, I think it was my women's division leader at one point. She was like, you give me the worst job in the party. I said, what do you mean? You're women's division leader. And she goes, this is the worst job. She goes, it's like herding cats. She goes, nobody wants to listen. This is the worst job. But now, so that was internal, but now bringing the groups together. And this was a big challenge. Early on, I felt like I failed at it in the very beginning, but later I became quite successful by it. And a few ways of I did that was to bring groups together, and you say, well, okay, this is our event, but everybody's welcome. We're going to let your leaders speak. Just let us know who wants to speak. If you want to, you're going to be able to speak. So each group leader or each organization, their leader could come and speak. So that was one way to get them in the door and get them to cooperate. Otherwise, why would you go? And some groups, maybe their leader didn't want to speak or wasn't a speaker, and that was okay too, but they were there to kind of meet other people, potentially try to recruit. But it was an unspoken rule, like you don't poach from other groups. You don't pull people. If somebody's independent and they're just there, that's their fair game. You can recruit them, but any group can, but you don't pull from other groups. And that was a rule I had in place, but some of the other group leaders didn't always do that. So when we would see cases of like a group leader going to jail or something, in some cases, and I'm not going to name anybody, but I can think of one particular case. The guy was in jail for not even 24 hours, and his group was imploding because other so-called allied groups, I'm doing air quotes, allied groups were poaching some of his people right away. And then there was another person that was ranking in that organization that was like, no, I can do it better, and was trying to form a splinter group right there, and that group just imploded. And you would see things like that happening, and I learned from that, seeing that sort of thing happening over the years. So that's another reason I had that rigid structure. But when you got all these groups together, and I can say one time and again, I'm not going to name the groups. I'm going to try to think how to explain this. But you had groups that were using like the same name because they were splinter factions. You know, like somebody said, you know, this isn't. We're not the real uh, group. They're not the real group. We are. You know. So then you have two or three.
Mhm.
There was one organization that had three factions, and they were all coming to an event that I was doing, and I thought people were like, how are you doing this? How can you? These guys will kill each other. They hate each other. They're in different parts of the country, and they're all coming together for this. And I basically told all of them, because they're like, you can't let so and so from the, you know, they're fake. How can you let them speak? And I said, every leader of each faction gets a chance to speak. Well, you know, if he speaks, I'm going to kick his ass or something like that. I said, if you do that, we are going to haul you out. You are going to be held accountable, and they'll be staying. So whoever throws the first punch, you know, is out, and that's our rules. And this is our event. So you know, unless you want to be hauled out yourself, you will behave. So I can't think of one time where that didn't work out. Now I can think of lots of times where we had went to other events, or our people had went to other events and there was violence, but at our own events it was always kept within check. But it also helped to have like armed guard, you know, our security was typically armed as well, so it's like that played into effect as well.
Structure. We doing 101 with the biases? I cannot wait for this. We going? Okay. Proportionality bias. Cult members might believe a major transformation in their life must be caused by the group teaching or intervention, ignoring that a lot of things has to do like the placebo effect. You make them believe, and they believe is so strong that sometimes a cult can be somebody saying they can cure you, like organized religion, but it's not true. How that work on your aspect? Make sense? What the explanation, or make it too complicated?
No, I'm picturing the churches, that some of the churches that heal people, you know, like, oh, you have cancer, you're gonna die next week. Boom, you're healed, you know, and they just touch you and you're healed. But how did that affect work in the world that
Yeah,
I was in?
brother. Like, so there are social factors, like we talk about the doomsday. Basically, it's kind of the doomsday. Like you promise something that things doesn't happen, and when you says, well, my power as a leader is what is stopping it. Not because social factors or because didn't happen, or we are attacked not because I'm a bad leader, it's because I'm so strong then I need to be attacked.
Yeah. So so in cases like
Oh
that,
my
like
God, that smile. A dollar for that smile and your thoughts. And I'm thinking, you thinking like, what the heck I can say about that story that I cannot share.
right. Well, you know, whenever there was external pressure and things that were put on us, or whenever someone was targeted or things like that, you would say things like, basically like, well, the government is coming down on us, or the system is coming down on us because we are so powerful and they're so afraid of us. So we are on the verge of greatness. We are on the verge of coming to power. So we just need to push harder and harder. And I wasn't just saying these things, like I really truly believed it. So like when certain trigger events would happen in society, like I can go way back, and this is into my early years, but
Yeah,
like
we're talking about
when
27 years. We have some people on the audience that is not even 27. So imagine how long was that?
a long time, a lifetime. But I'm thinking back to like, and this is, I was really young at the time, but like the Oklahoma City bombing, when that took place. And I remember saying to people in the group, and the group was pretty small at that time, but I remember saying like, everybody needs to prepare, basically, because what this idiot did by, you know, attacking that government building, yeah, if you know, like in the early stages when they didn't know who it was, I said, if it's somebody that's at all attached to the movement, any branch of the movement, or if they call it far right or whatever, the government is going to come down on us. They're going to come start sweeping us up. And I said, you know, we're a legal organization, and we don't, you know, break the laws. But if they start sweeping any of us up, or start sweeping up the leadership or anything like that, it's time to go to war, basically. And you know, I kind of tempered that language later, as I got older and wiser, but that was in the kind of the early years. And I look back at that and think, man, what, stuff like that, you say those kind of things, and that's how, and we're past the statute of limitations, so I'm safe to talk about that. But when you look at things like that seriously, like in all seriousness, you implant those things into someone's mind, and that's how you have these shootouts and you have these other standoffs that happen with people, because they get it in their head that psychologically that they are under attack. This is the last chance. This is our last stand. And I had that mentality as well many times over the years, where it was like, okay, this might be this is going to be the Alamo. Here we go. And psychologically preparing people for that, I can tell you, like, from leading small groups of people into dangerous situations, like we're clashing with communists, Antifa, anarchists, all that far left groups, and there was times we were outnumbered like 10 to 1 in these groups. And there's one story, like in my book, where in Phoenix, where we were being pelted with rocks and urine balloons and bricks and all this kind of stuff, and fires were being started in the middle of the street. Antifa was setting fires, knocking over newspaper holders and trying to make barricades, and the police were in between us, and they kept stopping, and every time the police stopped, we're being hit with projectiles. And I remember after one of the women got hit and she has blood coming down her face, I said, that's it, we got to get past the police. So I'm telling the police, get out of our way. They're like, no, you're not going through us. Did you see how many people there are out there? They'll rip you apart or whatever. And I said, I don't think so. And so we waited until there was a seam in the police lines, and I had told my stormtroop director, who's a big, professional fighter, I told him, I said, when that seam opens back up on the right, we charge through it. Just go down the lines, tell as many people as we can get through there to wait. And when that seam opens, we're going through it. And when it did, I think it was like 10 or 12 of us at the most. Maybe it was less than that, but only a handful of us got through. And we're talking, there's pepper spray, tear gas, everything, where everybody's choking on it. It was a riot. It literally was a riot. And when that seam opened, we charged through. Just a handful of us were charging like into, it must have been, there had to have been at least 100 of them, at least, maybe more. I just remember yelling out, like, hey, we target you in those situations. You would always target what you'd see as the leadership or the most aggressive of the agitators from the other side, and you take that person down. So that was, I said, basically, like, tap into your berserker rage and charge, and we just charged into them, and they ran. Thank God, because I think we would have been killed otherwise. It was not. It was a really. It wasn't frightening at the time, but when you put yourself back in it and look at it, you go, oh my gosh, like that was so dangerous.
It's more Machiavelli than a bias. Is a common enemy make us stronger friends.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Illusory truth effect. Basically weakening your critical thinking by repeating message and calls like, we are the family, you're chosen, our way is the only way. We cannot touch on that, but it is a bias. It's something that is used in many aspects, but we're going to talk about more how work in the brain and from the call way, Jeff. So
it was a statement, not a question.
Statement question. So I'm giving you the red carpet. Okay. Do you know how my brain works? I'm giving you the red carpet. So your chosen is our way on the is our way or no way, debilitating the critical thinking. So it says how somebody can debilitate the critical thinking. Can you give us 5 points that how that can happen? Simple. It can happen in your life. In domestic violence, can happen in a cult, can happen in a company. It's called domination and manipulation.
Right. So you convince the individuals that basically that are involved that this is their only choice, that this is the only option. That there's no other way out, that this is how we must do things, this is what's to be expected, and this is the key to victory, or whatever that the slated goal might be. And I can use examples from my life and experience. That's probably the easiest, but these things, I don't want people to say, okay, well, I wasn't involved in anything like that, so this doesn't apply to me, but it does, because the parallels are the same. I'm just these examples that I have are just from that life in particular, but I could probably I'm sure I could articulate it in any given situation. You just take that psychology and you adjust it to fit whatever that cult might be, whether it's your religion, whether it's your business practices, whatever it might be that when you're trying to sell something. All of these things play on the same psychological drivers, and the same intimate, like, human desires, and that sense of belonging, and wanting to see it through.
Yeah, that's got to do with confirmation bias that we talk about. Whatever happened, you only look for things to confirm your beliefs, because human doesn't want to be wrong, no matter how much presented. When the idea is put in their head that the reason first impression has nothing to do with you, no matter how much effort you do, but you have the horn effect that you have done everything right, and suddenly in your head says, nope, that person now will become an asshole, and is an asshole, and is not changed. So we talk about that one. Sunk cost fallacy. I love this one. Individuals remain committed to cults because of investment and time, money, and relationships. Bad relationships are, I gonna stay in this marriage because I already been married for 10 years. I gonna stay in this company because I have smart. This is more a personal question to understand how implied. It was the sunk cost fallacy involving, and that you stay for 27 years. That was a life investment that you stay so long.
Yeah, first I want to just say, like, on the confirmation bias, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's a huge part of these organizations. And on the sunk cost
Mhm.
fallacy, I mean, that is it can become all encompassing for a lot of people, because when you've invested that kind of time, energy, effort, in my case, it was one of the reasons. The sunk cost fallacy was one of the reasons it took me several years, I feel like, to break away, because I was changing my outlook on life in about 2016. There was some changes probably going on even before that, but like real serious changes going on between 2016 and early 2019 when I left. And I'm dragging my feet. Felt stuck, absolutely stuck. And this is the cult leader feeling stuck. Imagine what the individuals that are involved in it. But I had all these excuses and all these reasons to stay. Like, my business was wrapped up in it, so it was like, okay, this is the life, this is the empire you built. The business for years and years and years, reinvesting stuff into it, and building it up and making it successful, and then putting your whole life into a cause, into this
Mhm.
environment, and then going, oh my gosh, it's wrong. I was wrong. Like, that is a huge mental hurdle to get over for a lot of people, and it would have been easier to stay. So what I'm trying to do at this point is I'm trying to change the Nazi party. And I explain this, like, when I speak at schools, especially to the kids. I say, you guys remember opposite day? You wear your clothes backwards. That was my life. Like, I'm having it backwards. So I'm putting lipstick on a pig. I'm trying to dress up the Nazi party, make it look pretty, telling the press this is a white civil rights organization. It's not a hate group. It's not a Nazi party. Stop calling it that. It's a white civil rights organization. And you look at that from the outside looking in, and you you wouldn't believe the looks, because I'm reading people all the time, and it's
Mhm.
something that I do with anybody that I meet. I'm trying to figure them out. I'm trying to read them, and when I'm reading the reporters or the people that I'm saying that to, the looks that I got, like, man, this guy's insane. He thinks it's a white civil rights group, and most of the time they're not printing that, but or they would say he calls it this, or they claim it's that. That sunk cost fallacy, when you're so wrapped up in something and so committed to it, it is hard to, especially when you look at it that way. So I'm thinking like, well, I invested all this time and effort, maybe I can fix this. I have to fix this. I felt responsible to fix it. And eventually then it was sort of like somebody shakes you, I was shaking myself, but it's like, dude, you can't fix this. There's no fixing this. You can't fix this. You can't repair it. There's nothing to fix here. So that's when I had to break away from it. But that sunk cost fallacy, where you feel like everybody is involved in it. So there's that pull. And then in the case of, if you have your business in it, your whole social network, everybody that is almost involved in that. Like I could count the people, a handful that I knew that weren't involved in it. And some people don't even have that. They just have the group, so that becomes a huge factor when you're looking at pulling people out of these kind of groups, or changing your mindset, is to get past that sunk cost fallacy. That's a huge thing.
The phrase most people don't know, but the phrase "don't drink the Kool-Aid" is coming from the massive suicide killing done for one of the cults. We're not going to go that, because you can Google it, and I prefer not to name it. But "don't drink the Kool-Aid" is because they're poisoned the Kool-Aid, and people was given to their kids the Kool-Aid. And in your case, you were drinking your own Kool-Aid to convince yourself, like you said, putting lipstick to a pig. And most people doesn't know, and my mistake, I shouldn't have said. There's a really well-known documentary that changed your life, and that's the reason we have you here. It's called Why Right? Meeting the Enemy. It's a film. It's a really acclaimed film. If you have the chance to see it, you can follow the path and how Jeff has been, and to the point that is here. And you know what? I didn't want to say it in the beginning because I didn't want to make people being afraid, but the majority of these coming from questions that people did privately. And what is scared me the most is people says, I want to be watching later because I don't want people seeing that I seen this, or I don't want people know that I'm doing the questions. Be not afraid to make the questions are more important than the answers. And this kind of lives that we're doing is to educate people, not because you're uneducated. You're wrongly educated with information, because the information is a way to cult and manipulate people. So the wrong information is a way to bring you to the cult. So these kind of conversations, they need to happen. I love your story, and people should read the book to understand that can happen to anyone. But in this case, we talked before, we consider it's going to be more important talking about why it's happened, how it's happened, and examples that can be in everyday life that people don't pay attention. From being a groupie to a musician, to be a groupie on an influencer, to be a groupie and certain movement, to be a groupie to a political party that we're seeing today, to a cult. There's no so much different on that. Jeff, the last thoughts of you, and after you, Elba.
Yes, that's 100%. I mean, if you can apply these principles to any aspect of life, and you hear people that'll say different things like, oh, I would do anything to be with that rock star or that person, they don't know nothing about them, just what or that actor or actress, they don't know nothing about it. They could be the worst person you ever met in your whole life. You don't know, or they could be completely benevolent. You never know. But having this false pretense, or this false sense of, I want to say idolatry almost, that you see no wrong in another individual, and that you just follow them for whatever purpose. These are not things that if people out there are going, I would never get involved in a hate group. I would never be attracted to a cult. I'm above all that. You don't know what you're talking about. That's just for stupid people. It's a bunch of, idiots that don't know any better. Believe it or not, some of the people that get involved in this stuff are highly intelligent. It can affect people from all walks of life, and you are not immune to it. You're only immune to it if you understand the mindset, if you understand the psychology. So if you're out there thinking, I'm immune to this, I'm above this, you might be surprised. You might be really surprised.
Elba?
Yes, and I agree with you, Jeff, because sometimes that people that said it's not going to happen to me is the first person that it happens to it. So it happens. And I think putting all this information out there for people to understand is to make them make better decisions, informed decisions. So for me is that.
Jeff, let's say name of the book, where they can buy it, where they can find you, and how they can find you.
The book is American Nazi From Hate to Humanity. It's was released by Wilkinson Publishing out of Australia. You can get it directly from my website at jeffscoop.com, or you can order it from Wilkinson directly from Amazon, anywhere good books are sold. You can get it. The audio version should be out here pretty quick. I'm just going through the final list.
You're doing the audio?
I'm doing the audio. I did the audio. Yeah.
Oh God, that'll work.
Yes.
Yeah. So that should be pretty
where
good
people
too.
can find you, because I know it's really delicate with parents and family need to do an intervention. So I know, only to let you know, Jeff is really private with those things. I have seen the process, and sometimes I have bring clients that need to go to the process. So that is completely NDA, so from both sides. So be open to ask for help. People is afraid to ask for help because they're threatened by cults, and these institutions call it that way. So how people can contact you for those things, or corporate training?
Yes, so jeffscoop.com is the best place for that. Otherwise, beyondbarriersusa.org is our nonprofit, where we also help people disengage from cults, gangs, extremist groups, etc. And so beyondbarriersusa.org or jeffscoop.com.
So anything that take a person away from the group, from the safe space, is a cult. Alcohol, drugs, cult, organized religion, that is a cult. Don't misunderstand because you think it's innocent, is not that innocent. Anything that take you away from the loved ones, with the routine, with the things that make that person safe, is a cult. If you don't know what it is, ask the person who knows. Don't go to TikTok, don't go to Instagram, go to people who are part of the cults, go to people who understand cult, go to people who take people away from the cults. Be really careful. I know a lot of people who have paid lawyers and trying to go legal. Legal battle doesn't happen. If the person is older than 21, there is nothing legally you can do. They sign release, they sign their inheritance, they sign their organs to the cults. It's not a way to get a person away. You can use psychologists, but basically you need a person who does destruction. And military is called extraction. So you need a person who knows how to get the devil inside. Older than 21 is nothing legally, horrible to say, but the legal aspects are not so deep that you can take somebody away, because it's their decision to be there. So it's not fixable by law. So don't go to a lawyer, maybe legally to know how much you can intervene, but legally, unfortunately, is nothing to get done. Jeff?
That's correct. I mean, basically anything that the way you look at through society, even advertising is a cult in a sense, where, you're being told you need this product. You have to have this product. It's going to save your life or whatever. So yes, those of us that understand the cults, that have either lived it or have worked directly with it, have the best understanding of how to reprogram the mind and to reach people, because usually the consequences, so-called consequences or threats, all that kind of stuff doesn't work. For me, every lash of the proverbial whip, anybody that tried to dissuade me from it, it just further entrenched me. So it was a different process, and that's a whole nother episode, I think. But yes, you need to understand where this is coming from and how to approach it correctly, or you're not going to get anywhere.
Guys, thank you very much. Let's see how this go. With the questions we have after. We know sometime in this time of the day it's kind of complicated to see live. We have a lot of people seeing after. We hope that we can give you some tools to move forward. Jeff, thank you very much. Thank you, Elba, my partner in crime. Guys, For you, have a great weekend. Remember, Monday we're going to be talking about how to deal with difficult people, your family, and all those horrible questions they do in conversation. You don't want to go, but Thanksgiving is the only time of the year that you got with all of them. Funny, on Tuesday we're going to talk about how not to be a victim and using your body language. Right, guys? See you next week. Thank you.
See you next week. Bye.